I'm here to help stuff your pockets with my Week 7 best bets. Let's go.
Let's go.
Hey guys, welcome back to another sports betting after dark. I'm your host Calvin Timms, and unfortunately my co-host, my sister, is out of town today, so we weren't able to get her on the podcast. But you can follow us both on Twitter at TDC_Calvin for myself and my sister Sam Timms99 on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it. You can follow the podcast as well at FF After Dark. Don't worry though, even though she's not here, I still have some good bets for you guys. Now, I kind of ran some of these past her, got a little bit of feedback as well. So everything that I'm running past you is not out of this world, but I'll run you through some of it and give you guys my opinions on it and what I think are some really, really good ways to make some cash this week, pairing in some very good analytical data as well. So hopefully you guys enjoy that this week, and let us know your thoughts down below in the comments. While you're there, if you can't subscribe to the channel, leave a like on the video. It just helps us out. And Sam will be back next week. She finally switched jobs, so she doesn't have her night shift anymore, and starting next Friday, she'll be open on the weekends finally. She's working a normal 8 to 5, I guess, Monday through Friday. So she'll have a lot more free time coming forward, and we'll be able to be more consistent with these podcasts going out. But let us know your thoughts down below if you like having her on here and if you like her takes. So I'm sure she'll be happy to read that when she gets back. So that said, let's jump over into some bets, and we're going to keep this short and sweet today, and why I really like a lot of these bets here today. Now, I really try to just focus on a couple of games. There's a lot of games out there this weekend that had some juicy lines. I know that 6 teams are on bye as well, but that still leaves 26 teams out there to place bets on, and there were some really, really juicy lines in a lot of games. There's a lot of scary lines as well. So I tried to narrow it down to just a couple of games. Now, I do have a lot of different bets that I like in a lot of these games, but, a lot of it is backed by, like I said, some deep dives into the stats and things like that. So the first game I want to talk about is going to be the Buffalo Bills versus the New England Patriots. And the bet that I wanted to highlight in this game is going to be Mac Jones under 1 touchdown. So basically Mac Jones to throw for 0 touchdowns in this game. Now, New England is at home, which I do like, but the odds on this are plus 145. The reason why I like this so much is if you watch any New England games so far this year, and unfortunately I've been forced to watch quite a few of them, New England Patriots offense is absolutely terrible right now. And the Buffalo Bills defense, everyone's talking about how it's banged up and it's really, really weak right now. Well, they still whoop the crap out of the Patriots every time they play them. And on the season, per game, the Buffalo Bills defense is allowing a grand total of 0.7 passing touchdowns per game. 0.7. You couple that with the New England Patriots, who are throwing for 0.8 passing touchdowns per game. The chances are in this game of Mac Jones throwing a touchdown, I think, are very low. 1, you have a defense that doesn't give up a lot of touchdowns. 2, you have an offense that doesn't throw a lot of touchdowns. You put those two together, and it's not very good or not very cheerful for Mac Jones in this game. Mac Jones has also been playing terribly. He's been throwing a lot of interceptions the last couple of weeks, and I could really see them starting to look at pulling Mac Jones if he starts to mess up early in this game. So him not throwing a touchdown, I don't think is too crazy, and at plus 145 odds, I thought that was too good to pass up. So I just wanted to bet that one only from this game. I didn't really want to go too much because Buffalo, New England, who knows what's going to happen. It's a divisional game. It's in New England. The weather's not the best out there. This could be a run game, like a run-heavy game script. So I wanted to just get my one bet in this one and get out. The next bet that I had was a parlay, and this was only because now not everybody might be able to take advantage of this parlay. So just keep this in mind. But I got a 50% boost on DraftKings for a Cleveland versus Indianapolis game, right? And I don't know if it's just because it's regional or if it's whatever. It's Ohio. That's where I'm located, and DraftKings knows that or whatever. But either way, I do like the odds in this one pretty heavily. If it hits, I think it's like plus 700 if it hits. It's only a 3-leg parlay, but basically it's Gardner Minshew to throw one passing touchdown, minimum one passing touchdown at minus 215. Gardner Minshew to throw for over 197 at minus 115. And then a Michael Pittman Jr., anytime touchdown at plus 195. Now, the Pittman one is probably the scariest in this parlay, but Pittman, I think, is due for a touchdown. And when you look at the fact that Gardner Minshew is going to throw the ball a ton, this Cleveland Browns defense is very, very good. But their biggest weakness right now is the passing game, actually. And it's not a big weakness. They're only allowing for 121 yards per game. It's not, that is terrifying. Their defense is otherworldly. They're the best in the league in every measure right now. Their rushing yards is terrible. They're third in rushing yards. They only allow 79 per game. They allow a little bit more in the yardage, but I think that this team is going to have to throw the ball a little bit more to want to compete with this Cleveland Browns offense. I do think Deshaun Watson's going to play, and he's going to put him up a little bit earlier. So I think that Gardner Minshew is going to be forced to throw the ball a little bit more. I do think that the weapons there are good enough that, you pair Zach Moss, you pair Michael Pittman, some of these tight ends, that he's going to get over 200 yards. He's going to have that just by volume. He's going to probably get a touchdown. Vegas agrees at minus 215. I think that's like 70% chance that he throws at least one touchdown in this game. So Vegas does not think that's insane, even against this vaunted Cleveland defense. And if he's going to throw a touchdown, I'm betting on the number one wide receiver for this team, which is Due. So again, I only did this because I got a 50% boost on it. And I coupled that with a no sweat bet. So, it's a regional one, so feel free to partake if you can, but the 50% boosted odds on it is what made it very, very, very enticing to me. So, the next ones, these ones were all just because they made more sense. The Cleveland one, Cleveland versus Indy, again, I just got it because it was offered by DraftKings. Baltimore versus Detroit. This one is going to be fun. This is going to be a grindy game because both of these defense right now, the Detroit Lions is, one of the best defenses in the NFL. In terms of rushing yards allowed, they're number one against the rush. In terms of passing yards allowed, they're a little bit more middle of the pack. They're right around like 12, give or take. They're pretty low on points allowed as well. They're bottom 10 of points allowed in the NFL. And then you couple that with the Baltimore Ravens. This defense is only allowing 15 points per game. Detroit's allowing 19 points per game. Both of these teams are bottom 10 in terms of points allowed. The Baltimore Ravens, so far though, they are very, very strong against the run, right? They're top 10 against the run. They are also top 10 against the pass. And that's where it's going to be they're second against the pass right now in the NFL, right behind the Cleveland Browns. Now, it does help that they've played the Browns, they've played the Steelers, they've played some not so great offenses so far. So I do think that the Baltimore Ravens is a little bit of it's a little bit deceiving compared to what it actually is on the field. Like, I don't think that the Baltimore Ravens defense is the number 2 defense in the NFL right now, if you had to ask me. But all the stats are kind of pointing that way at this point in time. I just don't really see that personally. But that said, if you look at the Detroit Lions offense, they are insane. They are scoring. They're 4th in scoring per game. They're running all over people. Now, they don't have David Montgomery in this game. They might not have Craig Reynolds as well. Jahmyr Gibbs will be active. They've activated a couple other guys, but their passing game is definitely improving, and that's where I think that this is going to be able to really spark off. The Ravens defense is good against the run already, so the Lions not having a great run game in this game, I don't think really matters. They're 4th in the league in yards per game, passing yards per game, and I don't think that's going to really drop off when that's what Baltimore is also weak against. So that said, I think that the Detroit Lions are going to win this game. I took Detroit Lions straight bet at plus 130 odds on DraftKings. I took the under 42.5 at minus 103. Straight bet on that one as well. And then I also took Ravens under 22.5 total points at plus 100. Again, we just talked about how good these defenses are. I think the Lions have the best odds of pulling out the victory in this one. And I think it's also going to be a very low scoring event. You're talking like a 17-14 or, 15-12 type of game where I could see this game having no touchdowns in it whatsoever and it just being a field goal battle between these two defenses. The Ravens, I don't think are the number 2 defense, but I do think that they are pretty good. I think the Lions are going to be able to move the ball against them, but they're going to struggle in the red zone. And that's where the Ravens are actually pretty good, is in the red zone of keeping people from scoring. Now, again, the Detroit Lions defense, you can throw on them, but I don't think that the Ravens offense is the best in terms of throwing the ball. In fact, they're bottom 10 in terms of, or bottom 12 of throwing the ball right now. And I do think that that's going to be a weakness for them. They're not going to be able to establish the run with Lamar and, Justice Hill and Gus Edwards and those guys. And it's going to cause them to struggle at passing the ball as well. And we've seen the Ravens offense the last couple of weeks be really poor in terms of moving the ball and scoring points. So I think the Ravens are going to struggle. They're not going to be able to score a ton of points in this one, especially against this Lions defense. So Ravens under 22.5. Now, one other parlay that I wanted to do in this game was Justin Tucker over 1.5 field goals plus 114 with the Lions kicker Patterson over 1.5 field goals at plus 114. Parlayed those together for, I think it's like plus 260, give or take. $5 wins you about $13-14. So it was a good parlay in my opinion, just because I think that this is going to be a grueling game where the both offenses are going to be able to move the ball, but they're not going to be able to score a lot of touchdowns. So 2 field goals for each player, each team seems more than realistic, especially when you got Justin Tucker over 1.5. I mean, he's made for this. So I love that in this game. Now, going to the next game, Washington versus New York Giants. Washington, a parlay that I really like in this one. I think that this is going to be a bit more of a high-scoring game. I think Washington's going to be able to score and move the ball, and then Washington's defense is terrible. They're like number 1 in behind Denver. It depends on the category, but they're right behind the Denver Broncos in terms of yardage allowed and people being able to score on them. So I think that the Giants are going to be able to move the ball. They're going to be able to get points, which is why I took the over on 37.5. That's a very low over at minus 110 odds. I parlayed that with Washington winning by 3.5 points. I don't think this is going to be that close of a game, especially with Tyrod Taylor being the lead guy in this game. I like Tyrod, but he's just more of a conservative guy. I don't think that he has what it takes to really go and drive this down the field and, put up multiple touchdowns. So I parlayed those together. Washington minus 3.5 was plus 109. So, you pair those together and you have pretty good parlay odds there. 2 straight bets that I like are Brian Robinson at 70 plus rushing yards, because the Giants defense is giving up a ton of yards on the ground, and that's plus 110. Sam Howell over 15.5 rushing yards, minus 110. I like the odds on that. Sam Howell's shown the ability to scramble the last couple weeks, so I think that he can pop one off in this game. And then one other parlay that I wanted to put together was Wan'Dale Robinson over 37.5 receiving yards at -115 and Curtis Samuel over 34.5 receiving yards at -110. Curtis Samuel has not been less than 35 yards all season long, and I don't think that's going to stop anytime soon, especially with the Jahan Dotson news that we got earlier in this week that he's, playing special teams. He's not really being thought of as a focal point of this offense. So I think they're going to continue to run the ball through Terry McLaurin and Curtis Samuel, which is why I like the over on Curtis Samuel. And Wan'Dale, I think, is someone who's going to have a much better performance this week. And, 37.5 is a pretty low bar to complete. And again, Washington is giving up a ton of passing yards. They are giving up, if you look at it, they are sixth in terms of passing yards per game allowed at 248. Now, I don't think Tyrod's the type of player to really exploit that, but again, the bar for 38 receiving yards is pretty low, especially for someone who I think is going to be the number one in Wan'Dale. All right, next game I wanted to jump over to, we'll talk about Green Bay versus Denver. Just a few straight bets in this one. I think that this game is going to be more explosive than a lot of people do. I took the over 47.5 for this game at +119. I think that both teams are going to be able to score the ball. 47.5 is basically 24-24, right? I think both teams, neither one of these defenses scares you. The Broncos are literally the worst team in the NFL, the worst defense in the NFL, and their offense can still move the ball and score. Conversely, the Green Bay Packers are a middle of the pack defense, but they give up so many rushing yards. It's insane. They are top 5. They're number 5 in terms of rushing yards allowed per game at 143 rushing yards. So I took the over straight bet +119 for this game. I took a Javonte anytime touchdown at +200 odds. Russ over 1.5 passing touchdowns because the Green Bay Packers, they're good against the pass, but I think that, when you look at this Denver Broncos offense, a lot of it comes through the air. So I like taking Russ. I think that Russ has had over 2 passing touchdowns in pretty much every game this year. And the Green Bay Packers, when you look at them, in terms of their passing efficiency and defense, they're literally averaging 1.5 touchdowns per game through the air. So I like those odds of Russ being able to rebound from the last week where we saw him kind of stink it up and go for 2 touchdowns in this one. +150 odds on that. Javonte, 60 rushing yards at +130. Again, you go to the rushing yards allowed by the Green Bay Packers, 144 a game. They're averaging 4.3 per clip of rushing attempt. That's just insane. You can run all over this defense, and I think Javonte is getting back to health. And, we saw a couple of big explosive runs from him last week. Now, the question is whether or not he's going to get enough volume, but, at 4.3 yards per carry, he only needs 14 carries. He's been right around 10 to 12 every single week. One big pop-off run, and he can easily get 60 plus. That's +130 odds. The other number I took was the last bet in this game was Aaron Jones over 51.5 rushing yards. The Green Bay Packers are bad. The Denver Broncos are worse. They're allowing 172 rushing yards per game. Now, granted, this is a little bit skewed because of the Miami Dolphins. I don't know what it is if you were to pull that one out, but when you have like 400 rushing yards, it's gonna in one game, it's gonna inflate the numbers just a little bit there when you've only had 6 games. So, they're probably around 130 to 140 without the Miami game, but that's still a ton of yards that they're giving up to teams on the ground. So I like Aaron Jones. He's coming back. He's finally healthy, of 51.5 rushing yards at +100 odds. Now, the last game I want to talk about is going to be Tampa versus Atlanta. Atlanta's going to Florida. They're going to play the Buccaneers in Florida this weekend. And this was an interesting one in terms of breaking these two teams down. Now, one thing that I found was crazy in this game, these two offenses do not score in the first quarter. These two teams have combined in the first quarter, the entire season, so through 11 games combined, 25 total first quarter points. Tampa Bay has 6, which is wild, and then the other 19 come from Atlanta. So I did a parlay in this game because Tampa Bay is terrible in quarter one. They're the worst in the league in terms of first quarter points, but they are amazing in second quarter points. I think they're number 1 or they're up there. Where are they? I can't find them right now off the top of my head, but they're very good in the second quarter of scoring points. They average 7.4 points per second quarter. Meanwhile, the Atlanta Falcons are, right around 5.5, give or take. So I paired a parlay of first quarter under 7.5 points because, they don't score points. 25 total points over 11 games. That's an average of, field goal per first quarter. So you could really, if you really wanted to, take 3.5 and you have good odds of hitting under 3.5. But that's just terrifying because one field goal one touchdown really wrecks this parlay. So that's why I took 7.5. It's possible that they could score more, but very unlikely given the track record we have so far. Minus 7.5 or under 7.5 for the first quarter is minus 165 odds. But then I paired that with a second quarter over 9.5 at plus 120. It gave a nice little juicy parlay right there of plus value because, again, Tampa is very good in the second quarter. Atlanta's much better in the second quarter as well. So I would not be shocked if both of these teams struggle and then adjust in the second quarter and have a much bigger boom in the second quarter. Another parlay that I did in this game was Kyle Pitts over 32.5 receiving yards at minus 120 with Jonnu Smith over 31.5 receiving yards at minus 110 and Drake London at 60 plus receiving yards at plus 155. Now, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they are pretty good against the pass. I'm not going to lie to you guys. It does scare me a little bit. They're not the worst. They're not the best. They're about number 6. You can throw on this team. Number 8. You can throw on this team, but you can't really score too many points. That's why I like. That's why I like Drake London at 60 plus yards because I do think that he's going to be able to get enough volume that he's going to be able to get 60 yards. Again, you can throw on him. You can't run on the Buccaneers at all. Which does scare me quite a bit for Bijan in this week, but you can throw on this team, and I think Jonnu and Pitts have shown the last couple of weeks that they are going to get enough volume. You're talking all 3 of these guys are the number 1, number 2, and number 3 target for the Atlanta Falcons. That's very low yardage numbers, 33, 32, and 60 yards for these 3 players. I forget the odds on that, but I think it was like plus 700 or something crazy. It was very, very high odds for this to hit. So I like it a lot because it's an easy bet that I think is very likely to win as well. And then the last 2 bets I did in this game were Chris Godwin over 59.5 receiving yards, and then Chris Godwin anytime touchdown. Chris Godwin over 59.5 is minus 115 odds. He's been much better the last couple of weeks. The week before the bye, they had their bye week, and then this week he's been over 60 yards in both of those games anyway. And the Atlanta Falcons are a good secondary. You can't really throw that well on the Atlanta Falcons, but when you look at this team, who else are they going to throw to? This game is going to be a competitive one, I think, in terms of I think there's going to be some good points scored. And when you're talking about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, it's either going to be Mike Evans or it's going to be Chris Godwin. I didn't think the Mike Evans anytime touchdown bet was very good. And his receiving numbers were crazy. I think it was like 63.5 when I was looking. So it might be different. But for Mike Evans, I think that that's a little bit of a high number, especially when you can't throw that well on the Atlanta Falcons. But Chris Godwin has been good against the Falcons in the past. he's not really the guy that is going to be facing A.J. Terrell, their number one cornerback. So I think Chris Godwin is going to be able to feast a little bit more underneath, and that's why he's going to be able to push that 60 yards as well as be utilized as the anytime touchdown guy at plus 230 odds. Again, that's just, you could couple that with Mike Evans and hope you get one of them. I don't think Baker's going to throw 2 touchdowns through the air in this game, but I could be wrong. So you could bet both of them if you really wanted to, but I just like the odds for Godwin a little bit better in this game. So those are all my bets for this week. Hopefully, again, I tried to narrow it down to just a couple of games so that I could really focus. I spent an entire night just looking at defensive stats for all these games and all these bets, and I really feel good about them. So you can let me know, again, down below in the comments what your thoughts are on these bets. If you like them, you can hit me up on Twitter. You can hit up the podcast at TDC_Calvin for myself, at FF After Dark for the podcast, and you can ask my sister what her thoughts are, or let her know that you miss her on Twitter at SamTims99. We're going to be back next week, and again, this will be dropping on Saturdays more frequently, and we'll be able to be more consistent going forward. But we appreciate you guys checking this out, and if you're new to the podcast, again, please subscribe to the channel. We're going to have more betting stuff. The betting thing will probably go after the NFL season. We'll probably just continue this for the whole year, because that's the nice thing with all the different sports and everything. I'm not an expert in any other sports other than football. I'm expert at football, air quotes, but yeah, I think that I don't know the other sports as well. My sister's a really big hockey fanatic. She's a junkie on hockey, so she's been giving me some good bets for those. But yeah, we can continue this throughout the entire season. If you want to hear other sports, let us know down in the comments, and we can happily start to add some of those in there as well. So we want to hear from you guys. Let us know your thoughts, and until next time, thank you guys so much for joining me tonight, and have a good night.
And we all got dreams, we all want things, but what you gonna do for it? How you gonna move for it? What you gonna be?